Hey everybody, as many of you know, I recently attended the American School of Lutherie in Portland, Oregon, and I made my first guitar. And a lot of people, I've been talking about it to different people, and my online family and friends have no opportunity of coming here and seeing the guitar in person, so people have been asking about it, and I thought I would produce a little video and show you the guitar, and then talk about the experience and the guitar a little bit. So here it is. As you can see, it's a dreadnought style guitar. Okay, move back a little bit more here. It looks pretty much like a standard style when you think about it, when you look at it. It's a Sitka spruce top and Indian rosewood back and sides. Mahogany neck and ebony detailing in most of the places. I will just talk a little bit about the American School of Lutherie. It's a school started by Charles Fox, a master luthier of more than 40 years' experience, very well known in the guitar building trades. He's been instrumental in a number of advances in the production of guitars in both factory environments and in the hand-built, custom-built arena. Charles is, widely recognized as one of this nation's, sort of founding fathers of Lutherie. Well, not really. It's not really that old, okay, but certainly from the '60s on, which is when Lutherie really caught fire in this country. He was, in that first class of guys that sort of came in at that time and really pushed, like our generation, the '60s generation, pushed the trade forward. So I would highly recommend the school and Charles personally, just a remarkable individual, well-rounded guy, and certainly when it comes to guitar building, but in all aspects of art and science. He keeps his hand in many pots, and so it was an intriguing and educational experience from the standpoint of making the guitar, but also from just as a generally edifying experience. It was really recommended. So if anyone's thinking of it, I would highly recommend Charles's school, certainly as a foundational experience. You will not regret it at all. It was 2 weeks, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day minimum, and we produced the guitar. If you'll notice, this guitar has kind of an odd sheen to it, although it seems almost like a matte finish. In fact, there is no finish on this guitar. And that's because in the 2 weeks course, you really don't have the amount of time to dedicate to putting a finish on the guitar. Most of the time, in any case, when you finish a guitar, a lot of the time is spent in letting it cure between coats before you sand for the next coat or the next series of coats, and that can take a day or more depending on conditions, and it's just not an effective use of your time. So we're left to finish these guitars on our own as far as putting on the actual finish, which I intend to do at some point. You can see, because I haven't done it, there's some stains. This is from the oils on my body. I can remove this obviously before I refinish it, but that's it's starting to get soiled somewhat in the area of the pick guard, where the pick guard would be. You can see maybe it's a little beat up there from my hands, finger picking and flat picking and striking this area of the guitar. That's also something I can fix up. But let's look at the details of the guitar. First of all, I designed the headstock and hand-carved the headstock. You can see I did what I think is a nice reveal there. And you can see the various laminations, ebony and then white and ebony again. It's an alternating lamination for the headstock detail. Also, the tuners, these are Goto bronze tuners. They're reset into the headstock, which is also another little custom detail, nice detail there. Again, I pointed to the rosewood and Sitka spruce used as the main tone woods. That's AAA grade wood, which you wouldn't find on a standard production guitar. Possibly, maybe only a high-end production guitar of several $1,000s would have tone woods like that. That's the first element that goes into the sound that is produced by this instrument. And again, I'm really impressed, not so much with my own abilities, but with the whole art and science of hand building a musical instrument, and through that process and the designing and the working of the wood, producing superior tones that would not come out of a standard production guitar. And this guitar has such tones to it. It's my first effort, so are there things that I could do better? Obviously there are, but having the benefit of Charles's expertise and skill, certainly, and his design. This is a Charles Fox design. This guitar, I did not design this guitar. Charles basically did. And in style, as I said, it's a standard style dreadnought, but there are unique aspects to the design that Charles puts into his guitars, and this guitar has some of those, not his most state-of-the-art aspects of design. He's got some space-age concepts in there. I mean, the guys today are really pushing the envelope when it comes to design of custom instruments and the acoustical properties that they go after and how they attain them. It's incredible. Some of the basic concepts of that are in this guitar, and we'll talk about those. So the tone woods make a difference, the design makes a difference, obviously the construction makes somewhat of a difference, and from my standpoint, perhaps had I been more skilled and careful, I might have produced an even finer instrument. But this surpassed my every expectation. It is beyond, while I was on the trip, I visited many of the music stores in the Portland area and pulled down multiple $1,000 guitars, high-end production guitars, and played them. And I was like, wow, what have I been doing all these years? I listen to these instruments and I just say, they don't have the character that this simple first instrument has, and it's remarkable, really. That doesn't mean they're bad instruments by any sense of the word. But there's certain things that they're lacking, and a custom-built instrument has, not necessarily by nature, but can have those things because of the skill and care and art and craft and perhaps science of the luthier himself. So this instrument, I went over some of the details. Again, we were talking about the headstock before. I'll show you some of the other design details. This is an end graft that I did, and I'm rather proud of this. It's not really a beginner's detail, but this end graft ties in the bindings on the back with those across the top and carries the purfling, which is the alternating striped line there, around the guitar on all elements. I haven't yet drilled the end peg hole here for the strap. That'll probably actually be a jack pin because I intend to put electronics in this guitar. Give you a close-up of the binding. There's ebony bindings. You can see here the ebony binding on the edge, and it's got the white and black purfling stripe there, and it also has that same detail on the top of the guitar there. You can see that. The rosette, you can see the rosette design there. That's abalone with the purflings around it. Unique bridge here. this bridge is only temporary. The bridge is actually the permanent bridge. It's these bolts here are temporary. These allowed us to bolt the bridge on and run the strings normally so that we could set up, build the saddle, tune the nut, build the nut and tune the nut and saddle and do intonation, set up the guitar, and then still be able to take this apart for finishing and then gluing the bridge on after the guitar is finished. It does affect the sound of the guitar. Certainly you can see that the bridge is lifting up here. It's because this is not glued down, so therefore all the string tension, which would normally radiate through the bridge to the entire soundboard, there's a much narrower area in which it's able to produce that sound. It makes like almost that the bridge is as big as this inner step here, and it doesn't translate any of those sounds further out on the bridge. So once the guitar is finished, it'll have an even fuller, richer sound, but the sound as it stands is quite remarkable. Other unique things about this guitar and its design, somewhat unique. It's a full bolt-on neck, which would leave some purists with questions as to the quality of the sound of the instrument. Ideally, when a guitar is built, the neck and the body become one unit, and acoustically they become one unit, and the vibration of the strings, it vibrates in the wood in the neck, and that's passed into the body along with the bridge connection. They're all important in producing all the tones that you hear in a guitar. And the thought is that if you bolt this neck on, you will destroy that unitized relationship between the neck and the body, and therefore the acoustics will suffer. So even though this is a bolt-on neck and doesn't have a standard mortise and tenon or dovetail joint, it does not suffer from that problem, and that is due to a unique design element that I don't know if Charles originated it. I call it the Fox block. It's a unique block that is somewhat reminiscent of a Spanish heel. There's a block behind the heel of the neck inside the guitar here, and this block is what this heel of the neck is bolted onto. But in addition to that, the upper fingerboard, which is traditionally glued onto the body here, also has two bolts that go into that block that tie this upper fingerboard onto the body. So that's one of the unique design elements. Another one is inside the guitar, which you can't see. I'll describe it, though, as I talk about something that you can see. Traditionally, the top of the guitar, where the sides fold in under the neck here, is flat. It's not. It's radiused on this design. That's also the case down here at the butt of the guitar. If you notice, this is a radius, a shallow radius, but a radius nonetheless. And that's sort of a concept that Charles has in building the shell to be a very strong unit, a standalone unit, if you will, that has no inherent stresses of its own, but adds strength and stability to the structure of the guitar. So there's a radial design all the way around the guitar, as well as special, what they call kerfing. If you know anything about a guitar, if you look inside, I don't know if we'll be able to see it with this camera, but probably not. I'm going to try to tilt the guitar at an angle where you can see the kerfing. No, not without light, I guess. It's not going to happen. So, but if you look inside a guitar, you'll notice that there is serrated wood around this joint here, and also in the back, all the way around the guitar and the inside. The sides, that's against the sides, and then the top and the back are glued onto that kerfing, and that sort of acts as a strong binding surface to hold the top and the back onto the sides here. That kerfing is, for lack of a better term, gunneled kerfing. I don't know if Charles invented that either. I think he did, but it's extremely strong and yet light. And what it does is it produces a shell before you have the top and the back on. It produces a shell that's remarkably strong and is not going to move and flex in ways that it shouldn't. As a matter of fact, one of the students in our class actually dropped his guitar on a cement floor, and from several feet off the ground, a couple of feet off the ground, it bounced on the ground and came back up into his hand. And he was like, as you can imagine, he was severely stressed. But then after he examined his guitar, he realized there were nothing but a few scratches on the bottom, which he could easily sand or scrape out, and the structure of the guitar was not touched in the least. So it's a remarkably strong guitar for how light it is. This soundboard has been thicknessed, not in any way unusual, I guess, for a hand-built guitar, but obviously the goal when you build the soundboard, which is the active element in radiating and vibrating and producing the sound of the guitar, you want this to be as strong as possible, but as light and as flexible as possible so that it can move musically and produce the sounds that it has to. So you're not going to leave this piece of wood any thicker, and you're not going to brace it any stronger than you have to. And that's sort of the art and magic of making a guitar, arriving at that point where the guitar just sings, and yet it doesn't fall apart if you drop it on the floor. And that's kind of the unique design that Charles and the modern builders put into their instruments. They're extremely durable instruments, and yet produce high-quality, world-class sound. And I don't know if I can call my guitar world-class in its sound, but it's certainly, from my standards, it's well above anything I've ever put my hands on before. I'll give you a close-up of the neck and the fretboard. This is an ebony fretboard, and it's got ebony bindings on the side. You can see the inlays there for the markers. I haven't done any inlays. I'm not sure I'm going to on the fingerboard. It's a beautiful piece of ebony, and I don't know if I want to mark it up in any way. It gives the guitar a rather austere look, maybe, perhaps. I'll probably put some kind of inlay up here and make up my logo or something. But this, as you notice, this fingerboard here, this is one of the things that I did on my guitar. I made several mistakes on this guitar, and I'll point them out, and they actually worked out to be features rather than failures, and I'll say that right off the bat. I'm pretty pleased with the way this came out. One of them was this guitar neck is narrower than a standard acoustic neck, which works out. I didn't really design it that way. It just worked out that way. I was making a standard acoustic neck, but I made a wrong cut, and so I had to recut one of the sides, which made the neck thinner, which is great. I have small hands anyway, so it worked in my advantage. A couple players that have touched the guitar and played it for some amount of time remarked that it feels like an electric neck, and it's very easy to play. That's not only the thinness of the neck, in both dimensions, actually. It's slightly thinner than standard in this dimension, too. Again, I could babble on for, several more hours probably, but by and large, that's the instrument that I built. I would recommend the experience. It was 4 students in the class. We had a great time together. It was just the right amount of people to have a social mix, of folks, interchange of ideas, different backgrounds, a dentist, 2 engineers, myself and another fellow who's like a civil engineer, not a civil engineer, sorry, mechanical engineer, and then a Broadway dancer, which was really unique, and he's studying to be an architect. So So it was a neat mix of people and a very wonderful experience, which I would highly recommend. So look for this video. Hopefully it'll be accompanied by a performance maybe by myself, or maybe just an audio file so you can hear the instrument. And that would be that. So thanks for watching, and don't hesitate to contact me if you want to learn anything more either about the instrument or the experience. I'd be glad to talk to anyone about it. Thanks a lot. Take care now.